Okay, pass to Mark, our MC.
Hello, welcome everyone. This is the May 23rd edition of our DeFi Toronto Meetup. You're all welcome. If you're watching this live today with us, we have exciting announcements. There is a lot on the news. And then an exciting presentation from Umar, who's right here with us from ChainPatrol. But before any of that, we're going to get to the program, Victor. So DeFi Toronto is, we've been hosting these meetups for a number of years. We actually predate the DeFi summer. We started in 2019, and every month we provide educational content. And we hosted all the main protocols. I'm not going to cite them all. You can find them on our Meetup page, which I'm sure you found because you're here with us today. And if you didn't find them, we are DeFi Toronto on meetup.com. This event today is recorded, and it will be available later on YouTube, where you can watch all the most recent series of talks that we had on DeFi Toronto. And of course, well, this is not financial advice or any kind of legal advice. We are washing our hands here. This is a purely educational. I'm gonna like to present a little bit the team here. I'm gonna start with some of us that couldn't make it today because they are called elsewhere. So Johnson Matthew is actually working at Vego at the moment. Is Safia with us right now? No, I don't think she is.
He's hosting another session right now with ETH Global.
Yeah. All right. So Safia is now at ETH Global. And well, Alim, you want to take it over? Say a few words about yourself.
Sure. Yeah, I can do that quick. Hey everyone, my name is Alim. Probably, if you've been a regular here, you've probably seen my face around along with Mark and Victor and everyone else. I've been in the DeFi scene since 2019, been in crypto since 2016, 2017. And I work for a company called Delve. The website is delv.tech. And we build decentralized infrastructure for DeFi, everything from full stack governance systems to protocols for fixed and variable rates. We're currently working on, well, we've shipped Hyperdrive, which is a fixed rate protocol to testnet, and we'll be shipping that to mainnet on Ethereum and Gnosis chain in the next month or so. And we've got some more exciting news ahead, but yeah, really excited to be here. Been with DeFi Toronto since the very beginning, and really excited to kind of elevate the Toronto and the global DeFi community.
Thank you, Lynn. And we have Imran, who is also cannot make it today. Imran is living in another time zone at the moment, but is one of the co-founders of DeFi Toronto. And Victor.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. So I used to work in traditional finance. I work for pension fund, and I cover a traditional asset class. Since 2014, I fall in the rabbit hole of crypto and always find it fascinating. And we start this DeFi Toronto meetup in the fall of 2019. Currently, I'm working for a crypto hedge fund called Foreign Capital. So there I do fundamental research relate to the crypto, the ecosystem, the token economics. I also developed a crypto course 4 years ago for York University. I taught 2 years. Right now, somebody else is teaching the course. And I'm also on the curriculum advisory committee at the George Brown College, which they offer a 1-year blockchain developer program. So I'm very excited to have you here and share all the great news, and I welcome everyone.
Thank you, Victor. And I'm Marc Lijour. I was made in France, operating in Canada. I'm currently working with Exion, which is a startup funded in France by the VC fund, the venture fund out of EDF. The group EDF is the electricity company from France. It's like hydro. What we do is we recycle supercomputer hardware and we run some of the good stuff on it, like blockchain nodes. We have on Node Hexaion, we have about 200 nodes for about 10 different protocols, Ethereum, Polygon, Tezos, Starknet, many others. And we'd be happy to run your own infrastructure if you're launching a protocol. We're also running some AI, quantum. We actually, as of today in Paris, we made an announcement with Minister Champagne and the Equatorial Minister from France about a new Canada-France alliance for digital twins. So digital twins is replicas of real world, and you can use that in trading. You can use that in many other live scenarios. And we're launching a working group on quantum. So we're the deep tech subsidiary of EDF Group. And mostly I'm excited about the blockchain part. And I'm excited about the financial services sector, which I cater for North America. I have different hats, not going to name them all, but there is this cybersecurity conference in Montreal that you might want to check it out. I'm helping out with organizing a Web3 stage. So I'm looking for speakers, so just hit me up. And next week, we're going to Consensus in Austin with a lot of Canadians. So I hope to see many of you there, and we can chat live in person in a hot climate there in Texas. Don't forget your cowboy hats, and I'll see you in Austin. Moving on. So I guess we're going to move to the program now, Victor. So we actually shortened the meetup today to make your life a little bit easier. And it's summer. I'm sure you guys want to stretch your legs. So we're going to start with a DeFi news recap. There is a lot to cover there. After that, we're going to get to Umar for ChainPatrol to talk a little bit about Web3 security. So that's very important. And then we're going to have a little bit of a fireside chat or a panel you guys are invited to ask questions, engage in the chat. This is a community, so we really welcome the dialogue. Our community is great, so I'm not gonna say it twice. So please engage. And without further ado, I'm gonna pass the baton to Victor and Alim for the news update. There's no jingle, so you guys can just take it over.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so let's start a news recap. Well, the biggest news just happened today, just happened literally an hour ago. So the US regulator has approved a 7 spot Ether ETF today. It was 180-degree U-turn. Literally 1 week ago, 2 weeks ago, everyone thought, oh, there's almost no chance they're going to approve because there's no much happening, no much engagement between the regulator and the Wall Street firm who apply for the approval of Ether ETF. But somehow 2 weeks ago, on May 20, the rumor come out saying that the SEC contact the applicants, ask them to update their application at accelerate base. So that's the first sign. And from what I can read, because my background is economics, so I tend to read a lot of macro news, including geopolitical news. From what I see is that Biden and Trump, the election coming, that Biden's a little bit behind Trump, and Trump recently announced that he will support crypto, and in fact he start accepting Bitcoin donation, crypto donation to his campaign. I suspect that because of that, the Washington, especially the Democrat, feel that they may lose the election, so they turned 180 degree. I will show you some of the some of the bill recently passed by the House clearly show that the sentiment against crypto has changed, which is very good news. for the entire crypto ecosystem. One interesting twist about the US Ether ETF is that, unlike in Canada, for example, in 3iQ have an ETF, it has Ether ETF, it has a staking a component in there, so that as a token unit holder, you will receive the staking return. Well, in the US, there's no such things. In fact, the applicants in recent week, they refile their application form to the SEC and removed the staking component. So for now, they don't have staking return for unit holder. I suspect is that because Gary Gensler has been vocal about that staking is an investment contract, so they don't want people to the ETF to engage in such activity. My guess is that the Wall Street Bank feel that at this moment it's more important to get approved rather than to fight on whether a staking is an investment contract or not. Personally, I can tell you that the staking is not an investment contract. The staking reward is a compensation for the service of the validator. But that's a different topic. Perhaps it's a good thing for the Ethereum ecosystem that the US ETF won't be staking their ETH. The reason why is that I feel that view is that right now we already have about 33 millions of ETH has been staked, and that's representing 27% of all the Ether in circulation. So if you imagine that the Ether ETF in US attract a lot of Ether and everyone try to stake it because you want to attract more investor, then we could see huge increase in number of Ether being staked. Maybe we reach 40% or something of all the Ether supplies being staked. Then two things can happen. One, for sure, is that the current staking yield will be dropped significantly. Right now, you see that the staking yield is only at a 3.4% compared to earlier, maybe 5-6%, because there's so many ETH keep flowing. On the left-hand side, you can see the line. That's the cumulative inflow of the staked Ether. So you can see they keep increasing over time. And another issue that we are going to discuss later on is that what's that mean if a lot of Ether being staked are controlled by ETF, basically the Wall Street firm. Would that be good or bad for the ecosystem? Which we can talk about it later during our roundtable. And really, over the last few weeks, we see this tremendous change in Washington, especially among the Democrats, their attitude against relate to the crypto regulation. This week, they passed this new pro-crypto bill called BID 21. Basically, is a very related to crypto, and we see that 71 Democrat representative has vote support in favor of this bill. Particularly significant is that Nancy Pelosi vote in favor of that bill, which is tremendously, because she is one of the the politician that's really anti-crypto, in addition to some other representative. So let's move on to some of the recent bill that has been passed the House. On May 20th, this bill called Deploy American Blockchain Act of 2022 was passed. An interesting thing about this bill is it says that the Secretary of the Department of Commerce will serve as the principal advisor to the presidents on blockchain technology or other distributed ledger technology, which is quite interesting because that means that the US president will listen to this secretary rather than the regulator like this, the SEC commissioner Gary Gensler. So seems the power has taken away from the SEC and shift to Department of Commerce. Okay, let's move on to this big bill, which just passed yesterday. It's called Financial Innovation and Technology for the 21st Century Act. Was passed by the House yesterday and still on its way to Senate. A few weeks ago, Biden was saying that if you pass this bill, I'm going to veto it. But this week, the White House indicated that the president will not veto it. So that's a huge turn, a 180-degree turn. And some of the key things in this bill is related to consumer protections and also have a clear pathway to crypto business developer to raise capital to serve customer legally. So this is really great news. And also, they also have a clear separation between the role of SEC and the CFTC. So basically saying that if it's a security, SEC will have jurisdiction, but if it's commodity, then CFTC will have jurisdiction. And they also require, the Congress require that there's a clear path to decide whether a crypto transaction is really subject to SEC rule or subject to CFTC rule. There need to be a very clear process, which is really good news. And here, another things in that bill is that it has started to define whether a blockchain is decentralized or not. Because if it's decentralized, then the crypto asset will likely be considered commodity rather than an investment contract or security. So here's the two key elements that define whether it's decentralized or not. One is that no person has unilateral authority to change the blockchain's function or prevent user from taking certain actions. So that's number one essential criteria. The other one is that no affiliated person has control of 20% or more of the digital asset or the voting power. So those are the essential necessary condition, not sufficient condition. But if you violate this one of these two conditions, you may not be considered as a decentralized blockchain. So that's good. Some clarity on what might consider decentralized, and if the token on decentralized blockchain will likely consider commodity. Okay, let's move on to something related to Ethereum, given that the news is about Ethereum. If you remember, a couple of months ago in early March, Ethereum went through a major hard fork upgrade and basically tried to improve the efficiency, increase the throughput of L2 on Ethereum, and also reduce gas fee. You see that here, the increase of the active user has really skyrocketed since the March upgrade. Really great news for the Ethereum ecosystem. Among the L2, I would say that the most increased one is Arbitrum. The green area represent Arbitrum, so there's more user growth on Arbitrum. Another one have a lot of growth is the purple one. The purple is Base. Base, as many of you know, that is the L2 built by Coinbase. So they gain a lot of traction. So all very positive development after the last upgrade. Well, there may be some temporary unintended consequence is that because so many people move on to, so many users, so many transactions move on to L2, the transaction fee actually declined in L1. There's less a fee collected by the L1 chain, the Ethereum mainnet. And you can see this green bar, which represent the total revenue, the total transaction fee happened paid by the user on the L1. And you can see since the March, the fast decline just until recently was really low, decline a lot. And because of there's less transaction happening in the mainnet, there's less burning of Ether. As a result, we see a slight increase in the total Ether total supply. So Ether, has been declining most of the time since the merge, but now slightly go up. So it turned from deflationary to inflationary. So, but I'm not too concerned about it because I feel that with a lower gas fee, cheaper transaction, higher throughput, developer will come up with a way to use that to build more application, to deploy more functionality. So we may just have to wait for a period of time, maybe 6 months or 1 year, to allow developer to take advantage this major upgrade. And this I find is a very interesting chart on the right. So many of you know that the total value log, right? Total TVL is one of the major main indicator we often talk about in the crypto system. Here, this person, Ryan Bergman from Bangladesh, he did slightly different. He says that, okay, he said that the mainnet is to support, is want to encourage developer to build things on top of the mainnet. So let's just look at what is running on the mainnet and calculate their market cap. So for example, for Ethereum, you can issue stable coin, you can have a application coin like Uniswap, like Aave, or you can tokenize real world asset, you can issue NFT. So he basically sum up all the market cap of those tokens that build on top of the layer 1 to see how much capital they attract. So, and he compared to other L1 token, so L1 network like Tron, Solana, Avalanche, and you can see that Ethereum by far attract the most capital that use the layer 1 network. Why this is important is that if you want to build an infrastructure, you want developer to use that infrastructure to build things, to do things, to have application, rather than just sitting your mainnet, just running a mainnet, just have just transaction, people just transfer the token back and forth, which have utility, but Ethereum is aiming to do more than just a digital gold, digital currency. So, and one thing remind me is that the McAfee law. The McAfee law says that in a network, the more connection or more user you have, the more valuable it is. So in some way, you can say that Ethereum are building more connections because there's more utility, more functionality, more features. So that will help increase the value of the network. Okay, I'm good. For the next part, I'm going to pass on to Alim to cover the rest of the DeFi news recap. Alim?
Thanks, Victor. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Lots of really great insights there. Yeah, I'll try to run through these quickly, but some really interesting ones. I think being a meetup focused on DeFi, the central bank digital currency is, I think at odds with many people in the community. Definitely at odds with my own personal values and kind of views. So this was a little bit of a little win, just recently. Oh, sorry, maybe we can have everyone mute, and maybe Victor, if you can just mute our friend. Yeah, so this is a bill that just passed. A bill that was just submitted and voted on. 213 Republicans, 3 Democrats voted for this bill, and it was basically aimed at blocking the Federal Reserve, aka the central banking system, from issuing a central bank digital currency without authorization from Congress. It's now going to go to the Senate for a vote, and the legislation basically aims to ensure that, privacy is protected, individual sovereignty is protected, and of course, free market competitiveness. With any central bank digital currency, protecting privacy and individual sovereignty is going to be pretty difficult. Even Canada is also in, the Bank of Canada has been working on a central bank digital currency for many years now, actually, led by an individual named Dinesh Shah, who we've actually hosted on, I believe, at DeFi Toronto a while back. And yeah, I still believe that, there is no way that it absolutely won't infringe on privacy in some way. So I'm more about the free market currencies and of course, crypto in general versus CBDCs, but everyone's got their opinion. Over 113 countries working on it right now, including Canada. Next slide, please. This is just another quick update regarding the same thing. A lot of people are kind of viewing the CBDC Act as like the CBDC Anti-Surveillance State Act. The whole idea is not to have Big Brother infringing again on your kind of personal activities of privacy. So that's what this act is essentially trying to do. And this could be good news for fiat-backed stablecoins, because just imagine if a central bank digital currency did arrive, then the likelihood is that a lot of stablecoins, for a lot of normies and a lot of retail users, they'd probably switch to a CBDC versus a fiat-backed stablecoin. And in fact, it could mean the end of many fiat-backed stablecoins, right? If the state chooses to do that. Could also be some good news for Ethereum, and we'll get into on the next slide. This could be a little bit of a tailwind for a lot of the stablecoins and most of them are actually issued on Ethereum and EVM compatible chains. So if we look at Ethereum, currently has the lion's share of a stablecoin issuance, well over 50%. And then interestingly, Tron in second place. And then you see a lot of other popular L1s like Solana, Avalanche, and several others, some emerging ones, probably Aptos, Sui, that are also, have stable coins that are in play. But so long as we don't have CBDCs, I think these free stable coins, more kind of free market stable coins that are, crypto native will continue to win.
Among all these platform that hosts have stablecoin, only Solana is not EVM compatible. Even Tron is EVM compatible.
It's a great point.
Yeah.
Okay, this has been a very heated topic as just recently in this past week. And two of the Ethereum Foundation core researchers, these are core contributors to the Ethereum protocol, who have a lot of influence in the research direction of the protocol and the EIP process and just the overall kind of direction with Vitalik himself and many others prominent individuals, have recently taken advisorships with, as many of you know, Eigenlayer. Eigenlayer is currently the largest restaking protocol. Currently has over $18 billion of TVL, which is just absolutely massive. So Dankrad and Justin Drake both have received pretty sizable portions of Eigen tokens, probably released over a period of time for their advisory roles, and these could be valued in the millions of dollars. So if you're probably thinking, okay, like, is this a potential conflict of interest, right? You have core Ethereum researchers now taking advisorships with, these protocols that are not completely orthogonal to Ethereum itself. I mean, but if you think about like a conflict of interest and, incentives maybe shifting a little bit, and that there could be some issues there. So this is really for the community to decide how they feel about it and voice their opinion. But there's been some influential people in the community that have commented, and I actually want to read some of their comments because I think it offers a good perspective. So one of the founders of a really popular app called Rotkey app, which is a kind of a privacy-focused portfolio tracker. His name is Lefteris Karaptsis, Lefteris. He said, I'm appalled that we have EF researchers, the people who guide the protocol development itself, take 6 to 7 figure compensation packages from protocols. And then he said that this is kind of a clear as day conflict of interest of key decision makers of the Ethereum protocol development and should absolutely not be tolerated. Another very influential member of the Ethereum community said, what is a core EF contributor doing when he accepts roles on projects that have conflicted incentives with Ethereum? Where's the credible neutrality? On the other side of the coin, many of you have probably seen the name Hudson Jameson, but he used to be a VP of Polygon Labs, or he still is. He's kind of on the other side, and he said that he commends both, Dankred and Justin Drake for, first of all, being very transparent and sharing that they've taken these advisory roles and sharing that on Twitter. But he said that, I'm concerned that this type of pure idealism could result in good, honest core developers and researchers leaving Ethereum protocol development because they aren't allowed to partake in the same advising situations that others, including many devs on L2s and MEV projects, commonly do. So I wanted to provide that perspective because, it's healthy for everyone to have this kind of discourse in these open forums, whether it's on Twitter or anywhere else. And everyone's entitled to their opinion. My opinion is that, when I look at the good things, it's like this could create a little bit more alignment between Ethereum itself and some of the application development that's happening around the Ethereum ecosystem. Like there could be positive influence from the core of Ethereum now spreading across, really important infrastructure players like EigenLayer. But at the other end of the spectrum, it could go the other way, right? Where it's a conflict of interest, where the influence is actually going back to Ethereum core and potentially shaping how Ethereum itself evolves. My opinion on this can be wrapped up in one way. I think if you're an EF core contributor, I think you should not be taking an advisorship role. Because again, I think the conflict of interest is too grave. There's too much at stake. What I do think is that Ethereum itself should be paying their core contributors well enough so that core contributors and researchers don't even think twice about taking these types of roles. These types of roles ultimately come down to the incentive. It comes down to money. I think that's how it should be. There's been a big movement in the ecosystem around retro public goods funding, retro PGF. Many L2s, many protocols, have participated in retro PGF, including Optimism when they released the token. The whole idea was we're building on the shoulders of giants, right? These L2s, a lot of the dApps that are being built on Ethereum, they're being built on Ethereum or other infrastructure, including other infrastructure that allows them to exist in the first place. So when you do your airdrop, don't forget about all those individuals that contributed to your ability to launch your DApp, right? Or your L2 or whatever it may be. So there's this idea of like retro airdrop to those core builders that have built the core infrastructure. I think that's a good middle ground, where you can still reward core Ethereum researchers without having them to take these formal roles. So yeah, there's a lot to think about, and I think this is going to be a hot topic for probably for like the next few weeks and months to come until maybe Vitalik himself chimes in on it. I'm not sure if he has. Next slide. Okay, just some fun stuff. I thought this was really interesting. EtherFi just recently unveiled plans for like a credit card tied to their restaking holdings. So EtherFi is a restaking platform, you can kind of restake liquid staking tokens and all that sort of stuff. Essentially, now you can actually use the yield that's generated on that restaking directly for everyday goods purchases with a Visa card, which is actually pretty cool. I mean, this doesn't take away from the fact that this still isn't DeFi at the end of the day. It's DeFi connected to CeFi, but it is a really interesting way for normies and for retail users and the masses to be able to say, oh, okay, there's actually some legitimate use cases here where my DeFi earnings can be used, for everyday stuff. So the payments are basically integrated with a mobile wallet. Payments are executed by swapping a portion of the user's holdings into USDC or borrowing a sum of USDC against your restaking holdings. And you can also pay back your interest using your, either ETH in this case holdings or your restaking holdings. EtherFi is 7th right now in terms of TVL for restaking protocols. It's got over close to $6 billion. So interesting development. Keep an eye on that if that's something that would be useful to you. Next slide, please. Okay, last slide here. So this individual on the right side is Kane.eth. He's from Australia. And I was actually just in Australia a couple of weeks ago for ETH Global Sydney, and had a chance to see Kane speak in person, where he actually introduced Infinex app. Infinex is a really interesting way for anyone to get involved in Web3, not just DeFi. And the whole idea here, the impetus behind this was DeFi user experience sucks. I think a lot of people know that. A lot of these apps, you have issues with your wallet. For example, MetaMask is probably one of the crappier wallets out there, even though most people use it. Issues with approvals, issues with, failed transactions, and just having to remember seed phrases and all that kind of stuff. So Infinex kind of is your, becomes kind of like your UX layer to access all of DeFi. And it's basically a safe way for you to be able to kind of like interact with multiple chains. Again, it's self-custodied, and they claim that it's highly secure. It's essentially like a passport to be able to interact with the DeFi ecosystem. So you have this one account, you can access many protocols, many DeFi apps in one place. It's cross-chain compatible, self-custodial, everything is recoverable. And basically the way that you secure your Infinex account is with passkeys or with biometrics. And so their whole thing is like no gas, no wallets, no bridging, no seed phrases, 100% on chain. They have in-app integrations. Yeah, I mean, Kane is a pretty reputable person, of adamant proponent of Ethereum itself for a long time. So a lot of people have faith in what he does. If I'm not mistaken, I believe he's actually committed about $25 million of his own money towards this project. And they're continuing to build it out. As of today, there's close to 100 million. It's about 98 million that's of TVL that's locked through the X interface. So it's a pretty cool project. Highly recommend you check it out. And with that, I'll shut up and I'll pass it back to Mark.
All right, thanks, Alim. Thanks, Victor. Lots of updates today. So it was very interesting to catch up. And now, without further ado, we're going to move to our speaker tonight. And our speaker is Umar. Umar Ahmed is the Canadian tech entrepreneur, software engineer from Toronto, and designer. He's currently the CTO and co-founder of ChainPatrol, a real-time security network from Web3 communities. Umar has led the development of advanced AI threat detection systems, designed novel threat analysis and reporting tools, and built a world-class team of engineers at ChainPatrol. He received global recognition for his web development and software design in the New York Times, CBS Evening News, and the Global Mail. After graduating from U of T with a degree in computer science, Umar started his career as a full-stack software engineer at Top Hat, and later at Together Software, that's a YC 2019 cohort. He has 10 plus years of software development experience and has a keen eye for technical and visual design. So it's a rare combination of actually being very good for technical and visual design, Umar. So can't wait to hear from you.
Thank you, Mark. It's a pleasure to be here and speak at DeFi Toronto. I guess I should admit someone in. Ben Town, okay. Welcome, Ben. So today I'm going to be speaking a bit about Web3 security through my work at ChainPatrol. And mostly I think I'm going to focus on building in Web3. I was thinking about sort of what would be relevant to this audience here, and I think the biggest thing was people who are thinking about starting a business themselves or are joining businesses that are just starting out, sharing sort of the journey that myself and my two co-founders went through, and sort of some stories from our experience just growing the company and starting out into this new space of Web3 security. There's a lot of overlap with traditional Web2 cybersecurity, but there's also a lot of really interesting kind of new challenges in the space. So I'll just get started with a quick origin story sort of ChainPatrol, and then we can dive into some sort of interesting stories for today. Let me share my screen just to have sort of a visual so that I'm not just talking and you guys are just staring at my face. Okay. So yeah, so Nikita, Vito, and I, we're the co-founders of ChainPatrol. And truly we started this company together after getting scammed online ourselves. We were scammed by a Discord impersonator, someone who we were trying to collab with related to an NFT project in 2022. And so we purchased an NFT, and that NFT was tied to a Discord community, and a moderator reached out to us, and said, "Hey, do you want to do a collab? We see that you did we bought this NFT with us," and we were all super excited. As you can imagine, someone reaching out from an NFT whole project. We thought, okay, let's dive into this. And one thing led to another, and we lost that NFT. So that was like a very shocking experience jumping into this new space, and really left like a bad taste, at least in my mouth, a little bit more as a crypto skeptic to start with. It could have just ended there. We could have just stopped engaging with the community or continued on a different area in crypto. But we took a different path. Nikita, who's the CEO now of ChainPatrol, he was working at Coinbase Wallet at the time, and he was getting firsthand experience from the scale of phishing and scamming problem. Being a wallet is sort of an interesting working at a wallet is a interesting position where you can see kind of as a gateway kind of for people into crypto, sometimes their first time dealing with cryptocurrency. Just kind of the scale and kind of frequency of these types of challenges with phishing. And an opportunity came up for us to build something to solve this problem. Myself, my background is very technical, and same with my co-founder, Nikita. And so he attended a conference at ETH Global in New York City in summer 2022. And the idea that he built out was called Burn My Wallet. And I can show you a little bit of that here. So Burn My Wallet was a project, trying to tackle the problem of post-compromise security. It's one thing if someone steals your seed phrase or gets into your wallet and is able to steal your funds. But something that people don't consider is that your wallet isn't just your key to get to your crypto, but it's also a form of identity. It's a form of authorization tool used to um, also access funds, future funds, stuff maybe that's locked in a protocol that will be transferred back to your wallet sometime later and can be then stolen at a later point in time. So the project Burn My Wallet tried to solve this problem by minting a soulbound NFT to a compromised wallet and basically announcing to the world, to the network, that the wallet address shouldn't be trusted anymore because it's been compromised, it's been burned, quote unquote. And this was a really interesting project, and I think one of the really interesting applications of non-transferable NFTs. And it ended up winning as a finalist project, and also winning some sponsored prizes as well at ETH Global. That led to kind of investors approaching Nikita at that hackathon, and wanted to hear more about his thoughts about the space and this problem. That kind of lit a spark in us together. We talked it over and thought, encouraged Nikita to pursue this further. But at that time, I was working full time at Together Software, and Vito was also consulting and working at Schulich School of Business at York University. And so we were just pushing him, being a super fans. Nikita saying like, "Hey, take this idea as far as you can." So he took that idea to ETH in Paris, and in that same year, we raised a pre-seed round for what became known as ChainPatrol. And the goal there was basically to make Web3 safe enough that your grandma could use it, and trying to tackle sort of this bigger problem of security for end users, particularly being targeted by phishing, being targeted by seed phrase theft, and the things that kind of happen off-chain, the social engineering aspect. So I quit my job in fall of 2022 and joined Nikita to build out the MVP for what became ChainPatrol. And yeah, we started kind of building out in 2022. And fast forward to today, ChainPatrol, we're building out sort of a anti-phishing and brand protection solution to help organizations like Consensus, Arbitrum, zkSync, L2s and L1s, DeFi protocols, people who are running their own have their own token or have a community that is engaging with them, and truly basically want to leverage marketing on social media and online, and are subject to kind of these threats. So the way that we approach this problem is by very much leveraging Web2 security tactics, looking at threat intelligence and gathering information about new domains that are being registered, new Twitter profiles, messages that are happening, and combining that and meshing that with information that we have about Web3 activity. Airdrops, looking at certain events within protocols, roadmaps, and understanding sort of where there's an opportunity for scammers and phishers to impersonate, to phish, and to basically defraud consumers as well as other investors. And so that's kind of like at a high level what we do. I think the best way to really see it is sort of a video demo. So I'm going to attempt to share this. I'm going to need some feedback to see if you guys can hear the audio from here, but let me know in the first couple seconds if you hear anything.
Here's a quick demo of wallet blocking by ChainPatrol. So here, our system detected a scam site impersonating Curve Finance. And if you go to this site, you'll actually see a scam page trying to drain your wallet. However, if you go to this page and let's say you're a MetaMask user, you'll actually get a big warning that says not to connect to the site or else you might lose your funds. Now, let's say you don't use MetaMask, but you use Coinbase Wallet instead. You'll get a similar big warning preventing you from accessing the site. Now, let's say you use Phantom or any of the over 20 wallets that we support in our network, all of them will show a similar warning as well. And that's it. Thank you.
So that kind of showed kind of the end result of the work that we do, which is aggregating, detecting, and monitoring these threats, and then producing a block list that gets distributed to wallets like MetaMask, like Coinbase, and Phantom. And so we're constantly scanning the internet, trying to provide new threat sources, and using that intelligence to help hopefully make the crypto space more fish-free for the future. So that's kind of like the shill about ChainPatrol and what we're building. I wanted to switch gears for the last kind of 5 to 10 minutes, just about some builder stories about how we kind of got to where we are today. So there's 2 stories I want to share today. The first one is just about, how we got, how did we get started, and how did we kind of like do things by hand, manually, and kind of get to that point. It looks like more polished today what we have, but it started off very humbly. And when we started doing anti-phishing work for brands, we heavily relied on manual work. And each of the founders in the early days was scanning by hand Twitter, new domains. We were looking at gobbling up news sources that we could find to find new keywords, just learn more about the tactics that phishers were using. And a lot of that led to us to a resource called ETH Phishing Detect, which is a community open source repository and block list for the Ethereum ecosystem, run and sponsored by MetaMask. And so we found this resource, and that was being used by a number of different cryptocurrency wallets, including MetaMask. And we started contributing to it. So every single domain that we found, we were submitting pull requests on GitHub. If you're familiar with kind of the workflow on GitHub, we were manually submitting pull requests, fixing bugs, and we did that for many, many, many weeks until we became sort of the number 3, number 4 kind of contributor on the list, doing hundreds of commits over time. And to this day, we are still doing a lot of that work, but started to automate more of this process. So, we became out of 500 committers, one of the top contributors, and caught the attention of MetaMask themselves. Eventually, that forged a partnership and a relationship with them. And sort of the lesson that I wanted to share today, building and trying to build a startup, is sometimes it's really important to not to try to jump into, the most fancy, the most elegant, automated AI, whatever buzzword kind of solution, but just start by hand, doing things that don't scale. Because in that process, you often learn a whole lot more, and you feel the pain. You understand the problem way more, and understand the value proposition that you're providing your customers in terms of what solution you're providing them. So I just want to share that one quick story because I thought it was really interesting, given that where we are today and where we started. The second story that I want to share is how we got Arbitrum as a customer. And this happened, honestly, very early on in our process, and we were looking back on it, and I'm quite shocked that it happened. But it may be interesting to kind of dig into how this happened. As a very fledgling company, we wanted to get more exposure into the space, so we ended up attending ETH Denver in 2023, last year. And that was our first opportunity to come to a conference with a solution, like an MVP of our product in hand. And really, we were looking for customers. Who could be our customer? Who could be kind of using our product? And we were lucky enough to have a really good network of investors, one of them including Cherry Ventures. And one of the partners there at Cherry Ventures, he reached out to us. He said, "Hey, I'm here at ETH Denver too. I just met someone at Shake Shack. Arbitrum's doing an event at Shake Shack, and they won't stop talking about scams. You need to get here right now." And luckily enough, we had a car we rented, and Vito, my other co-founder, drove us all the way across town and dropped off myself and Nikita at Shake Shack, where we met one of the lead developers at Arbitrum named Lee. And Lee spoke to us about sort of the mess of cobbled together scripts and automation that he was writing on in his spare time to deal with the scam problem that they were facing. And he was kind of like dealing with this problem all on his own and submitting PRs into ETH Phishing Detect and trying to basically build his own brand protection by hand, DIY. And you know what we said is like, hey, like, why don't you start sending us some of those domains too? You already have a brand protection provider, but evidently they're not doing a great job. So let's just send some data to us and we'll see what we can do. That sparked kind of a bunch of different things, including, you know, new product development and building out an API for submission to us. And you know, we would review those submissions, send them to ETH Phishing Detect, eventually automating that whole process. And I think the interesting thing there was a few months later when Arbitrum was doing their first airdrop, they were huge, had a huge spike in scams, and we were able to step in and really help them out. And that in combination with Elise speaking up for us in a call later for decision makers at Arbitrum, it really pushed for the adoption of our solution to the point where, you know, we were the only clear option. There was no reason not to kind of sign up with us. And I think the key lesson I wanted to share there is just, you know, one is try to increase your luck surface area. You know, if we hadn't attended ETH Denver, if we hadn't gone where our customers were, where potential was to meet more people, we never would have gotten that customer, frankly. And the second thing I think really to take away from that story is, you know, finding your first true fan. You know, if you have a really strong person within the organization who can see the value in what you're building and can advocate for you, it's a huge, huge help in the decision-making process. Because even if they're not the kind of the ultimate buyer, decision maker within an organization, it's they can help be an advocate. It's a whole different conversation, you know, coming internally from someone versus, you know, knocking on doors and hoping that someone will listen. So yeah, that's kind of it from the story's perspective. I just wanted to share some you know, insightful feedback about my experience building within the Web3 community. And I think just highlighting sort of just the collaborative nature here, even just me inviting to this venue and being able to speak with you all today, I'm really humbled and appreciative of that. And I think that's kind of the major draw to the Web3 ecosystem. I think the you know, the humbleness and also the willingness to collaborate. I think that's the key here. I think is figuring out sort of who is doing good, honest work in the space, and how can we kind of connect those people, finding those people, and you know, leveraging that to make good partnerships and connections. So yeah, thank you for everyone for listening to me rant and talk about that. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
This is great, Umar. Thanks so much for sharing your work at ChainPatrol and all these insights. I think it's really amazing. And you know, you're a great example of the great people we find in the community here. I'd like to open up the floor to some comments and questions from the audience, if we have. Feel free to raise your hands, kind of identify you, and then I can hand you the mic virtually if there is any question.
Yeah, I will have asked a question. Sorry, Eric, let me ask a question. Umar, you mentioned you have quite a few clients, you know, Arbitrum. Did you say that is MetaMask and Ledger, are they your customer yet?
Ledger is not a customer of ours, but we work together on some data sharing, and they do contribute to this organization called the Security Alliance. So we are working with them as a partner there. MetaMask as well as Coinbase and Phantom, they're accepting our data through our APIs and through our partners that we work with.
So,
So they are you're using MetaMask are using your service?
Yes, they're using our service.
Okay, that's good. Yeah. Did you have to raise capital equity yourself besides the revenue you from client?
Yeah, so we ended up raising some money prior to me joining. We raised a little bit of money just to start up the business. And then we raised a second our seed round just early at the end of last year. And that was part of it was participation from the accelerator program that we were with in Ace Andreessen Horowitz in their crypto startup school. And then we also got some venture funding as well from Consensus Venture Arm and Coinbase Ventures as well.
Great, awesome.
Eric, you had a question?
Yes, more super cool startup story, and I appreciate the honesty because I've had to sell a product before where I have to say, AI solves everything, and there's no manual process at all, but that wasn't the case. It was us digging through spreadsheets and going through a lot of different things to try to identify any bugs. So eventually, it's infused. Really curious, kind of to piggyback off that, what does your roadmap look like, and like what would be the biggest business objective or goal that you guys could accomplish this year?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is getting our data into as many surface areas that of crypto native users as possible. Right now, we're focused on getting data into wallets, and that's why you saw a lot of integrations happening in wallets.
Mhm.
Our biggest goal is getting as close to real time as possible. I think we want to shorten the gap between, identification of very clear scams. That's mostly what we're seeing right now. The bulk of the phishing and scams that we're seeing really ought not to be there. We in the Web2 space, there are already tools that we've built in email phishing, in anti like website kind of like impersonation that we kind of solved that problem, and it seems like it just hasn't made its way into the Web3 space. I don't know if it's just because of the more decentralized nature of certain organizations, or it may be just because of lack of awareness, but we're trying to spread that message loud and clear to everyone that, like, if you want to, you know, do any sort of marketing and grow your community, I think it should be the responsibility of organizations and their communities to kind of think about how we can leverage new and old technologies to solve this problem of phishing, and getting as close to real time as possible is kind of the need here, given that crypto is a lot of it is self-custodial, and that's the kind of the dream here, is that you are responsible for what you send out and what you receive. And so if it's a click of a button to send lots of money to someone, then it really needs to be a click of a button to stop threats and actors that are very clearly like impersonating or doing something malicious.
That's
Okay.
awesome. Appreciate your work.
Alim, you had a question, and then Lou.
Yeah, quick question. Well, first of all, great presentation, Umar, and thanks again for being here. Yeah, I'm curious, like, will ChainPatrol kind of like expand eventually the scope of like what you guys do? Like you're focused kind of on identifying scams today, but there's a lot of other security issues across Web3. Not talking about just like smart contract security, let's say, but let's maybe smart contract monitoring, for example. There's a lot of companies doing whether it's Tenderly or Guardrail that are kind of like monitoring for anomalies and stuff like that. Like, would you is the goal eventually to become kind of like a one-stop shop or a full stack solution for security in Web3, or is the plan to kind of focus in on this like just the scammer issue? Just curious to learn more about what the future looks like for ChainPatrol.
For sure, yeah. That's an interesting question. It often comes up when we speak to investors or anyone who's thinking about sort of the bigger vision of ChainPatrol. Initially, I would have said yes, we should branch out and diversify into sort of a suite of products. I still think there is an avenue for that for ChainPatrol. But I think a lot of people underestimate how wide and vast just this problem is. There's a lot of nuance even within phishing, and brand impersonation. And I think for at least a little while, our focus will be just on this particular problem. But there are a lot of adjacent and kind of related problems that I think we will look to, one, partner with people who are already really good at solving these problems and get our data to them and sharing that data as well. And secondarily, seeing if we can build tools or automation that can help integrate and connect that data together. If you look at the traditional kind of Web2 cybersecurity space, it's very rarely a winner-take-all solution. Cybersecurity at the highest level is a lot about creating a stack for your organization, identifying which parts are most relevant to you, and kind of having sort of a central system to tie all that information together so that you have the auditability, you have the traceability. And I think that's the kind of the play here is like, how can we, do one thing really well, and then think about how we can go closer to that core kind of like hub of cybersecurity information and threat intel.
Thank you, Umar. And Lou, thanks for putting a nice T-shirt for us.
Hey, Mark, can I jump in with a question?
I think Lou was first, and then you can go. Lou, you're on mute. You're still on mute.
There.
There you go.
No. Yeah, I'm just wondering, are you going to be on the metaverse as well? Because that's becoming like a marketplace. People are buying and selling, and that can also be a challenge. And then there's also traditional finance, where, most of these guys have no clue what's going on, and they really need this type of thing, right, to get them on track. And just, Web2 is a problem already. Web3 is going to be even more of a problem for them. And I'm thinking somebody like you is going to, your ChainPatrol is going to do something to help solve that problem.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about what we're doing here is we're very much trying to tie our cybersecurity detection and threat intel around web native technologies. And anywhere that I think you think about things that are like URLs and addresses and things like that, those are kind of universal when it comes to linking information together. And we want to be where people are interfacing with cryptocurrencies and integrating with anything that might affect sort of communities of people. So I think messaging is one area, as well as gaming and the metaverse, that I think there's an opportunity there to also use our APIs, use our technology to detect and protect, users as well as developers, helping educate them about how to, potentially mitigate some of the tactics of scammers. I think one thing that we're seeing in general across all of these is that wherever you're doing marketing, wherever you're doing communications, wherever you're doing wherever you're interfacing with your community, it becomes a hotbed for these scammers. So I think if that is the medium is on social media, whether that's centralized or decentralized social, we did a little hackathon even with a forecaster, creating a frame for them as well. So like wherever the need is, where there's community, I think the cool thing about building APIs and building protocols is that the ability to extend and compose is really powerful. And that's kind of really what we want to do, is like build a toolkit that have a composability here across these platforms. So definitely metaverse is on our roadmap, but it's not like a burning need yet. I think right now we see a big burning need on social.
Thank you, Umar. Last questions from James.
Hey, Umar, this is James. Congrats on success you've had so far in sharing the story. I'm curious, how are you thinking about the current go-to-market kind of strategy and the motion that you've built internally to scale out your sales approach? And obviously you have secured some big names, which is great. But I'm curious how you're thinking about your go-to-market and your sales motion.
Sure. Yeah, I think a lot of it up till this point, we have been relying a lot on distribution through our partners and wallets, and using that as a way to build reputation and build trust in the work that we're doing. So that's kind of the one of the key things there. And then the other thing is, I mentioned it earlier about increasing your Lux surface area. We do attend a lot of conferences and meetups like I'm doing here, and trying to get in front of people, get the message out that, not necessarily about ChainPatrol specifically, but just about Web3 security, and trying to kind of like get this on the radar of people who are thinking about it, or people who are already thinking about it, getting their attention and understanding of kind of what problems that they're facing. The biggest kind of like new area that we're approaching now is, how can we leverage the distribution that we have through referrals? How can we leverage warm introductions, those channels to drive our sales pipeline, and then optimizing kind of the bottlenecks there. Right now, it's kind of like back and forth between increasing our sales funnel, and then, well, our product needs to scale up to handle that volume. And so we kind of going back and forth in phases to kind of iterate on that.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for your questions, everyone. Thanks again, Umar, for your kindness and your openness to engage with the community here. We're definitely gonna keep watching what you guys are up to, and I'm gonna look for you at these events. And thanks for the tips again. So without further ado, we're going to move to the next part. I'm also watching the clock. So Victor, what do you think? Like maybe we move right away to the roundtable. But if there is any community announcement or any people want to say a shout out, maybe you can do that quick. If there's anything new, and then we'll move to the roundtable.
Anyone has any community announcement, hiring people, new project, is your time, is your chance to share with the community.
This is Sarah. I just have a question. Do you guys know of any like upcoming conferences this summer, June, July, August timeframe, whether in the Northeast, in Canada, the US? That'd be great to hear what you guys know.
Yeah, well, definitely next week there is a consensus by CoinDesk. It's happening in Austin, so it's going to be a big one. And hearing from the news in the US is going to be an exciting one. Don't want to miss it. In August, we also, like DeFi Toronto, we partner with the Futurist Conference. I think it's August 13 and 14. It's a great conference in Toronto. You meet a lot of the OGs. It's about 7,000 people attending. So the people come especially back from overseas to come back to Toronto. So we love that one. Any other conference, guys? There is one. There is the InCyber Forum, like that. I'm actually part of helping the organization. And Umar, you're invited. I want you to speak on the Web3 stage that you fit right in. We're expecting 5,000 people in Montreal next fall. There will be a Web3 focused stage, and the rest it's on cybersecurity. It goes from very technical talks down to policy talks. You can check it out. I'll put the link on the website. Awesome. Somebody had some other tips, conferences?
There's ETHCC, which is the Ethereum Community Conference, pretty big one. I think it was usually in Paris. It was in Paris last year. I was there for that. It's going to be in Brussels, Belgium this year, in July. Later this summer, there's also Permissionless, which is going to be another big conference. I believe that's last year that was in New York, but this year it's going to be in Salt Lake City. That's hosted by Bankless and The Block.
It's a pretty good one.
Yeah, it's a pretty good one as well. There's a really good one happening right now. I know it's not really relevant, but ETH Berlin tends to be a very high quality event that's going on right now as well. And, of course, at the end of the year, there's going to be probably the biggest conference of the year for the Ethereum community. It's DevCon. And that's going to be in Bangkok, I believe, in November. The last thing I'll say is for the ETHCC conference in Belgium that's happening in July, Tickets usually sell out pretty quick. I think the last wave of tickets is going to be made available this Saturday around 11 a.m. or 12. I think it's around 11 a.m. So if you are keen on going to that conference, tickets are 500 euros, unfortunately, pretty expensive. But they'll sell out within minutes. So you'll have to get in the queue, you know, and make sure you kind of get there early, nice, bright and early on Saturday.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. So, so Victor, we're gonna pass the mic to you now for the second part and last part.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Umar. Thank you, Mark. So now we're going to move on to a roundtable. Our team, we prepare a few questions, 6 questions on some big topic, and we invite everyone to share your thoughts, and just so that we make the meetup more interactive, and you know, you know, is it time to share your voice. So I will just now going to share the screen and show you the question we prepared. Okay, first question. What did we learn from the US spot crypto ETF launch, that including Bitcoin or also including the Ether ETF, you know, which all happened within the last few months? So what did you feel that is a takeaway from this experience, you know, especially the change, the U-turn in terms of regulation, and what does say about a crypto space in general?
I mean, this is Sarah. I'll start. Victor, you and I have a similar background where I think what it did was it brought in institutional investors. Prior to that, it was primarily retail. It was primarily men who had wallets. Now it's becoming more inclusive. So you have people who are considering it for retirement purposes, and you are luring in these Black Rocks and the Van X and the other institutional asset managers. So I think it's a game shifter, because once you bring those institutional investors in, that's where the big dollars start to flow in, and that's what we saw in the first few months after the ETF, the Bitcoin ETF in the US, was approved.
That's a great point, Sarah.
Yeah, great point, Sarah. I'll chime in with one comment. I think it really helped to legitimize crypto in the US and across the world. And, you know, for example, for a lot of large corporations who might have been considering, you know, to add crypto to their treasuries, or, you know, just to kind of diversify a little bit, or for anything else, I think it kind of legitimized that. And I would be curious to see the data around just corporate treasuries around the US and around the world, and how that kind of changed. If there was actually any additions of crypto as a result of the legitimacy, you know, being lended by the ETF. But yeah, that's yeah, I think that's just one point that I wanted to mention.
Yeah, recently we saw from the SEC filing, this shows that some US pension fund, some of the pretty large one, they bought Bitcoin ETF, and even some Canadian bank, which have office in US, they also disclosed that they bought US ETF, which I didn't quite understand, given that Canada already have the Bitcoin ETF long time ago, few years ago, and so I don't know why they need to buy the US ETF. Maybe you know, the fee is very competitive compared to Canada, I don't know if there's any other. Does anybody know if there's any other reason why Canadian bank want to buy US Bitcoin ETF?
But I can tell you one thing is that there was an event in Ottawa with the Canadian Blockchain Consortium a couple of weeks ago, and FightPy was on the panel, and it brought up that, or maybe not him, but somebody brought up a screenshot from a TD Bank announcement promoting an ETF out of the US. And they was not impressing the Canadian ETFs. You know, to have a Canadian bank selling or announcing looks like selling also in Canada. I don't know about that, but while Canadian ETFs, I understand, cannot sell in the US, right? So I feel the message on the panel from the panelists from the crypto community was we need a little more love from the Canadian institutions to support Canadian entrepreneurs.
That's great.
I would also add, I think just the market in the US, right? It's so big compared to the Canadian market. So from a risk perspective, I think it's less, and also from a diversification, it's better. And I'm certain the fees certainly made a difference. I don't know what the basis points are on all the different ETFs, but I know I was reading that they're quite low. So I'm sure that played a part.
Yeah.
Well, interesting. Sorry, it's Tony here. Interesting. I actually was sitting with Fred last night, and we were talking about it with respect to the fees for the US ETFs for Bitcoin, and it seemed they were all over the map. So there was no correlation with any kind of performance or any other kind of management metrics. So it was kind of a bit of a giggle. And the fact that, of course, for the ETF, the condition of slashing the staking element. I'd love to hear what people have to think on that criteria that appears to be, you know, the condition for the ETF for ETH.
Well, I don't know about that one, but I understand FightPies. I mean, the ETF from 3IQ has staking, but not the ETFs from the US. I mean, that's a core differentiation right there.
Yeah. So I wonder eventually the US Ether ETF will introduce staking after maybe Gensler left office, or one you know, Trump won the election, become president. You know, who knows, maybe reintroduce, but it definitely make the US ETF less competitive if you don't have an income return, where in the other country they can have the income return. I think one of the analogy relate to the ETF was mentioned by one of the a person in Asia, which is a licensed exchange in Hong Kong. Their COOs make this analogy. I think it's pretty good. It says that you know, ETF is like a bridge between TradFi and DeFi. So you bring the decentralized finance bridge over to traditional finance. So now you have a product sold by traditional finance, where the tokenization of real world asset is the opposite. So the traditional finance has those assets, whether real estate, equity, or bonds, they already have, but they wrap them up and put on the decentralized network. So you have the bridge from both directions, try to cross each other. So I thought that was quite a good analogy to help me conceptualize the connection, the significance of the ETF launch, and also the tokenization of real asset. Okay, let's move on to next question. Okay. Imagine that you know, US start offer staking in their ETF, and suddenly you have big chunks of Ether is staking, and you know, as you know, the for Ethereum staking as validator is like miner, that you know, they basically they secure network, they they vote on transaction. Is there something we should concern about that we end up too much concentration of validator or the ether, state ether controlled by the traditional finance, like maybe one or two company like control large percentage?
Yeah, I'll chime in. I think for sure this is a risk. Like Ethereum, like every L1 probably has some kind of forces at play that are moving towards centralization. On Ethereum, it's it's the fact that there's a lot of reliance on very few, for example, consensus and execution kind of clients already, right? Like we saw this issue months ago with the Geth issue. On top of that, I think there's just been a lot of centralization even around staking, with Lido kind of owning the lion's share of staked ETH, within that ecosystem. And then with, kind of Ethereum ETFs, we see that, again, we're have this large concentration of ETH kind of like sitting within large influential financial entities like BlackRock and Fidelity. And then, we start to wonder, like, what type of influence will they have on the direction of Ethereum itself? With holding that type of power in terms of that amount of currency. So I think that's a little bit of a risk. And the last thing I'll say is that, when you have these kind of honeypots of large ETH in one place, whether it's through Lido in their contracts or whether it's through, BlackRock and Fidelity, it's kind of at odds with the ethos of DeFi, right? DeFi was always meant to be your own bank, hold your own assets, and everything is non-custodial. With the Ethereum ETFs, everything is custodial, right? We're going back to the issues with the ways of old with the current banking system, where it's kind of like, yeah, you own your money because it's sitting in your account, but you don't necessarily control it, right? If the bank decides to shut you down, they can do that. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you have a good point. I mean, it's the question of ownership that keeps popping up, on top of the pie, because if you look at SVB, I mean, what does that mean to own something, if it can just disappear, right? So ownership, what do you own? I mean, that's, I guess, the question. Do you own a property, like an asset, like gold or a crypto asset that you can actually control? Or do you own a contract with a bank or some kind of companies that say, I promise I'll give you some money, but that might disappear, then this contract worth nothing if the organization goes bankrupt.
Yeah, the ethos of decentralization just remind me that recently there's a video surface on Twitter. One of the Canadian customer go to RBC, want to withdraw $3,000 something to buy a used car because the buyer want cash, and the bank teller was giving him hard time, say, why do you want to withdraw so much, just only $3,000 or something. It's not a extraordinary amount, and just really make you wonder, is really, in crypto we say your not your key, not your coin, it almost applied to fiat, is not your cash, not your money. So it's kind of quite of a surprising experience is that this is even happen in Canada, which we will touch a little bit later on the privacy side, right? So the bank basically censor you to use your own money, and want to know what is used for. Well, it's my business, where do you draw the line between privacy and security for the society? Okay, is terrorist finance, is money laundering, is where do you draw the balance? So we're going to touch on that topic later on. Anyone else want to share the thoughts on this topic?
Maybe another thought is, you know, I think certainly there will be more institutional investment because of the nature of what an ETF is and what that means in terms of buying the asset. A reflection I think we need to also have is because the makeup of holders is going to change. Right now, let's say it's probably mostly retail, and they will have more large investors, institutional investors coming in, so the proportion will be growing. Their pattern of buying and selling is very, very different. You know, so you cannot compare a hodler that's going to keep their crypto whatever happens down to an institutional investor that might be just reacting to the market massively, you know, potentially massively. So the question is, what would that do to the to the evolution of the market cap and maybe the prices over time? So I'm not a financial person, but I suspect the market is going to evolve very differently in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the both are good and bad from investor perspective. Like as investor, you care about the growth, you know, the appreciation, but also you care about the diversification. So I suspect that as more traditional finance institution, you know, invest in the crypto, Ether or Bitcoin, it will reduce the volatility, but it will increase the correlation with the traditional asset like stocks, you know, so you get less diversification. But by a lot more user adopt this asset, perhaps the volatility will reduce because just simply there's more people holding it. So that's my my guess.
Victor, just a quick question on that. I mean, do you think this kind of sets it up, you know, for the next market crash? I mean, will it be even greater? You know, that's what I'm so curious about with these spot ETFs and Bitcoin and Ethereum, because they're still so volatile. Just any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it depends. So if Ethereum, let's say Ethereum, Bitcoin, if there's more adoptions, let's say imagine everyone own a small portion of a Bitcoin or Ether, then you have a broader user base that help dampen the volatility. Another one might help is that if with more capital inflow into the DeFi space of Bitcoin, if allowed the blockchain developer to build more use case, you know, that also help dampen the volatility. Means that the network has more real world use case, more legitimate use case beyond just the price speculation. That may help, but probably you might thinking about that if there's a financial crisis and all the traditional bank, they have to liquidate asset, try to raise cash. Yeah, that might trigger more selling, from the large institution. That could potentially increase the volatility.
Great. No, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to next question. Question 3. Is DeFi achieved its initial vision, or has it remained a casino for degens? Are we seeing legitimate use case outside yield farming or leverage?
I guess I can start here. I think like during bull markets, we tend to see a lot of degen activity, right? And it almost feels like, oh my God, like, we have all of the tourists come back, to the space, specifically during the bull cycle. And there is a major uptake in obviously like farming, yield farming, the use of leverage, and a lot of the degenerate stuff that is commonly seen in DeFi. During bear markets, we tend to see a lot of building and a lot of legitimate use cases. So I do think that like at the surface, if you're on Twitter, if you're on whatever social media platform, you're likely going to see a lot of the degen stuff. But like under the surface, when you kind of sift through the noise and you try to like optimize for that signal, there are a lot of legitimate use cases. And if you look at like the OG protocols that have been here for a long time, you know, whether it's MakerDAO, decentralized stable coins, or if you're looking at, you know, just borrowing and lending use cases, whether it's Morpho or Aave, you know, you look at like fixed income opportunities, which is, you know, what I'm working on at Delve. There's a ton of use cases. I think that there's a lot of experimentation as well, which might give the sense of, you know, like degen. You know, with a lot of different teams experimenting, for example, with like new stablecoin models, you know, and, you know, we see that with like Athena, for example, or, you know, with many other platforms out there. But I think with the experimentation combined with like the bull cycle degen activity and just like a lot of noise, it definitely does drown out a lot of the real use cases. I think a lot of the interesting use cases now are really bridging DeFi and TradFi. And, you know, whether it's kind of tokenizing real world assets and bringing them on chain and using them as collateral, for example, bonds or securities, all of that is quite interesting. You know, there is a project called Back to Finance. I think they're based out of Switzerland. They've been doing that for many years. So yeah, I do think that there's lots of legitimate use cases. It's just you got to seek them out.
Anyone else want to share thoughts on this question? You know, in 2020, just the year after we you know, formed DeFi Toronto, there's a DeFi summer, and but since then we see there's a decline in total value lock on DeFi space. Have you seen any growth, any positive project that really get your interest?
Well, I can jump in again. It's Tony. I actually tying into the last two questions concerning the ETH ETFs. I wonder how much of an effect of actual DeFi use, you know, getting in there and doing some borrowing and lending and arbitrage and flash loans and all of that. Are the ETFs just sitting on ETH as a holding? And even though, you know, it increases the volume of ETF, you know, being held, is it affecting DeFi usage? I'm just wondering from a fee generation and from an activity perspective, will there be a, you know, impact of that?
I think that the ETF sponsor can use the ether they hold to generate income from different level, but also depends on the risk, right? Perhaps staking is considered lower risk than other, but if you do use the ether to provide liquidity in the liquidity pool, you may earn a return. There's other use case and try to generate return for the unit holder, but with additional risk, of course. You know, the eigenlayer basically allow you to earn more return. That might be a, you know, actually, you know, some positive things. If up to, imagine you have 60% of the ETH that stake, we may end up overpay the network security. But if you allow them to do provide service to other protocol without too much additional risk, you basically is like utilize those ETH for greater good for the network, the ecosystem.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure about the answer, but one thing, I've been talking to some regulators recently, like a couple of provinces here from Canada, and you know, looking around what Europe has been doing. A common trend is that I don't know if DeFi is done with the world, but the regulator are not done with DeFi. When you say the word DeFi, some people get really, really pale. But jokes aside, Mika has left DeFi to deal with later. And regulators here in North America, they often say that they don't understand it. They recognize they don't understand it. They barely understand crypto. And they just leave DeFi for later, which can mean many things, but definitely DeFi is not done on the regulation side.
Especially given the lawsuit against Uniswap, right? I don't feel they have a very strong case for two reasons. One is that they never have ICO token ICO, so they airdropped. So you cannot accuse them that issue a security because you have ICO. The second one is that the token holder do not receive any income from the transaction fee. So all the transaction fee on Uniswap go to the liquidity provider. So even though they have built this called fee switch that was ready to do that, but so far the community has not support that. Apparently big reason was regulatory risk, that if you have part of the transaction fee distribute to the token holder, maybe increase the risk of be considered as a security, because you have some kind of agreement between the token holder and the core team, something like that.
Well, a weakness of Uniswap is that it's touching Web2 on the web interface, right? And that's where this thing can be taken down. Australian regulator is not afraid of going out there and buying services to take down websites, right? So this might happen in the future. It's happening in Australia.
Okay, let's move on to next question 4. Given the arrest of software developer at Tornado Cash and also Samurai Wallet, is financial privacy under attack? How should the crypto community do about this? Anyone have a thought? What's the right balance, right? Your privacy or the security of the society, or the right thing to do for the society, money laundering, all those things. What is the balance here?
I'll kick it off. I think first of all, we have these amazing liberties, in the countries in which most of us live. Freedom of speech, writing code should be the same, right? Everyone should have the complete freedom to write any code that they want. How that code is then utilized should not kind of fall back on them, right, as a liability. And I think right now what's happening is like open source software development, is kind of under attack, where developers are developing code and not necessarily deploying that code, but they're getting arrested for that, and I don't think that that's right. What I think needs to happen is that there needs to be more kind of advocacy at the government level, and we're starting to see a lot of that. There's organizations like, for example, Coin Center, the Blockchain Chamber of Commerce. There's the DeFi Education Fund. And there's many other legal or influential legal members of the crypto community, like the chief legal officers at Andreessen, at Aave, at Polygon, and including my own at Delve, who are advocating for for the doing things kind of the right way, and it's more about education and educating the government to be able to make better policies. And one example of that at Consensus happening, I think this is happening on Wednesday, the 29th of next week. there's actually a crypto policy bootcamp that's being run by many of the most influential voices in the legal community in Web3. And you know, the more stuff like that happens, I think there'll be more people that'll be able to educate and influence policy creation across North America and the world, and kind of push it in the right direction, and away from stuff like this, which is clearly not the right direction. Yeah.
No, but
my
beyond
thought
privacy,
sorry,
because
go ahead.
privacy applies to data. Tornado Cash, Samurai Wallets, these are, I mean, like many open source software is actually, or many Web3 software is actually open source. And, you know, the ability to, if the ability to write code is hampered, that's a problem. But even greater problem is, it looks like the rationale from the court in the Netherlands in the case of Tornado Cash was that a developer is responsible from the future use of the software they develop. So with that logic, if I'm sending an Outlook email to do phishing with any of you guys or in our community, then Microsoft should be responsible for a fine because they've been using their tool Outlook. You know? So I mean, this logic is really hard to scale, or I don't think it will be resisting the test. Because one thing that's been happening in for decades is the IT industry doesn't want to be responsible for any harm that users get. You know, that's very, very clear if you read the fine print in the license. Oftentimes you use it as is. Would fundamentally change the entire IT industry if suddenly there is a liability for the use of the software, the product by the users. I mean, this is ridiculous. I don't think this is going to stand, but that's just my opinion.
If I remember correctly, apparently that in the Samurai Wallet case, apparently they find some email showing that the developer has encouraging user to, you know, launder money or something, some kind of a direct interaction between the developer and the end user, which probably doesn't help in their case if they just develop the software and deploy it without you know, nudging user to do certain things. Maybe there's more stronger defense, but I'm not sure how will that go. In terms of privacy, I feel that you know, before we have digital money, before we have internet, you know, cash is very private. You know, nobody can no right to know how do I spend my cash. But now with the internet, with, you know, everything is online with here, and suddenly that privileges, that benefit of privacy, it seems want to be taken away from us. So that's seems a little bit going backward to you know, take away.
Yeah, I mean, just say it, like if we had crypto without privacy, I don't think like people would keep using crypto. So basically, I mean, if you take the privacy out, I don't think crypto will stand. It will probably die from there. Nobody wants to have all their statement accounts like freely browsable for everyone, just to see what you buy. This is not something good.
Yeah, to add to the example case of software, think about all our favorite tax preparation softwares. You know, if they were to encourage you to use their software to, you know, defraudulently file false tax returns, well, that, you know, that might get them in trouble, but that's not what they do. So but people will potentially do that. It's just inevitable. But to more address the second part of your question, what should the crypto community do? I think that leads in very well to a lot of the current discussions and a lot of the narrative right now around digital identity, DID. So that I think is an opportunity where there's some really innovative solutions that are coming out, things like verified credentials and off-ledger authorization, those kinds of tools that will allow us to remain private, but also have the ability to carry a badge or something that says, hey, I've been verified for this particular application, so I'm cool, and you can trust me to use that in an authorized way, but not give up my privacy. So those are some of the fun things that I think are coming out right now.
Yeah, that's especially zero knowledge proof. Any other thoughts from attendees? Okay, let's move on to the next question. How will the dollarization of US dollar by country like China and Russia affecting crypto, if there's any? You might have read news recently. China is selling US Treasury and buying large amount of gold. I presume just to replace their the current foreign exchange reserve. So instead of holding US Treasury, you're holding gold as your reserve, and perhaps it's related to the debt, the ever-growing large public debt.
They've been doing that for years. If we can trust, people that claim to have connections in Switzerland, when you have a lot of the foundries for gold, the word is that there's been a lot of gold shipping to China for several years now. I got that right. The way I understand it, I mean, from a monetary economic perspective, the way I understand it is that, if you want to maintain a strong currency, you need to reserve, right? And gold remains the golden asset to, pun intended.
You guys hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks for having me on this thing. I'd like to answer this question just a little bit. I like these words thrown around: de-dollarization of the USD. Makes it sound very exciting. The reality is, China has ever only held about less than 5% of US Treasuries, about 4.9%. So let's say China wants to sell half of its US Treasuries and buy gold or whatever they want to buy. They have to sell this US dollar to somebody, correct? I mean, somebody's got to buy it, correct? So dollars are not going anywhere. Neither Japanese, the Brits, us, the Canadians, governments, the Swiss are buying US dollars, correct? I mean, they're not just vanishing into thin air and being replaced by gold. So the US dollar is not going anywhere. Secondly, I mean, yes, debt is a problem, and our government keeps spending a lot of money, and whatever. That's just the way governments work. And as long as somebody's buying the debt, like our interest rates haven't gone up, nobody's demanding more interest rates. I mean, our 10 years around 4.5%, 4.75%. I mean, if people are really worried about debt, it should be shooting up to 11 or 15%, right? I mean, it should be like Zimbabwe or somebody else. Every year, somebody's like, oh, it's like Zimbabwe. The bond market will tell you what demand there is for Treasury, and the bond market rates are not going that sky high, even though our debt's increasing. So de-dollarization is really a nice word, which excites people. It's been going on since I've been paying attention for at least 20 years, and it's been going on probably before then, and it'll keep going on. Truth is, what are you guys going to do? Who is going to transact in any other currency? The Chinese can buy from the Russians, and they'll sell them in yuan, and the Russians will give them rubles, and that transaction is completed that way. What happens after that? How's that money going to be stored? It's going to be stored in dollars somehow. That's usually how it works. We hear news about Brazil and India are doing business in the real and the rupee, and that's really nice. It's whatever, a few $100 million or maybe a few $1 million, whatever. What happens to it afterwards? What happens when the Brazilians are going to get the Indian rupees into their bank accounts? What are they going to do with those Indian rupees? They're going to convert them to dollars or maybe Bitcoin. I don't know, whatever that is. So the point is, I don't really think de-dollarization is going to affect the US currency. I don't know what kind of impact it's going to have on crypto, because that's out of my wheelhouse, which is I'll let experts like you talk about it. But I just want to make that clear that whenever you read articles like this across, it's very exciting to read them, but in reality is nothing much is really happening behind the scenes as much as we would like to think it is, in terms of actual changes in the demand of the dollar per se. So I'll just stop there. Thank you.
Any other thoughts? Any other people want to share their thoughts?
Well, I mean, just to I think that's an interesting point. I assume you're from the US, right?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I said I assume you're from the US.
Yeah, I'm from Florida.
Oh, nice. Okay, I'm from Connecticut.
Yeah, I want to thank you guys for having me, though. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, and I hear what you're saying, but I think with the formation of BRIC, right, and now a few other countries have been added, right, and they're really focusing on digital currency. Is it possible they unhinge the dollar a bit? I think absolutely. And a British economist just came out really recently, and again, always a difference of opinion, right? There's gonna be a lot of them, but you know, they truly believe that this debt is out of control. I hear what you're saying, and the bonds would indicate that if it was the case. But I think with the formation of BRIC and added countries, cryptocurrency, there could be a shift.
Yeah, a lot of things could be, and economists make their money by publishing lots of papers and giving lots of talks and writing lots of articles and having clickbait on yahoo.com or whatever other website people read so they can click it and make money, and that they collect money in dollars, right? So in any way, it's look, I don't know what's going to happen. Is there more debt than I'd like to see? Sure, but you know what? I still have to keep paying taxes. So I don't know what, just like your government, I have very little control over how the government spends its money. I'd like to see an improvement and less debt, but yeah, I think that ain't going to happen. So in terms of what might happen, what some economist wrote somewhere and got his paper published, talk about, you know, I'm not being cynical because I'm very smart or anything like that. It's just that if you pay attention, like, I don't know how old some of you guys are, by looking at you, you have all different age groups. I'm in my mid 40s. I was around for 2008 and I was around for 1999, 2000. And so for me, and maybe even more specifically, in 1999, 2000, I used to work in tech in San Francisco and Silicon Valley. So I got to really feel it out. So for me, when I've seen all these new technologies coming out all the time, they were going to be like, you know, massive game changers and everything's going to change. And it did, you know, I saw it with emails. I mean, can you imagine that? Email, AOL, happening, all that stuff, all the way from Sun Microsystems and then later on into, you know, the disaster of 08 and 09. So for me, because I pay attention to these things, if you pay attention, you'll keep hearing the same tropes over and over and over again for 20, 25 years. I'm sure another 20 years will go by, I'll be hearing the same tropes again. All of us will be 25 years older, we'll be paying attention, and there'll be some young 25-year-old talking about some new technology. And I don't know, I mean, it could de-dollarize, it could collapse, but reality is right now, it's, you know, what are you going to do about it? You could buy Bitcoin and make your money secured that way. Bitcoin's tied to the dollar too, because, you know, and so the idea is just trying to figure out, for me, it's learning more about the crypto space, which you guys were talking about earlier. I'm more interested in the practical applications of what is happening in the crypto space in real life. One of the questions the gentleman had earlier on the screen was, I forget exactly how it goes. Is it gambling for degens, or is it something real that's going to come out of it? And I can assure you, I have associated with a lot of degens in the past 3 or 4 years, and so it seems to me right now, from what I can see, a lot more gambling and yield farming. I think that was the word he used, than anything else. But then again, and this is me from the outside. I'm watching you guys who are on the inside, seeing a lot, and I'm learning about all the other possible real-world applications that are actually happening, that are affecting real-world problems or real-world issues. And that's what I'm here to learn. And for that, thank you so much, because maybe, you know, I caught, like, in terms of my understanding of all the crypto lingo, I caught about half of what you guys said. And the rest of the half I have to keep looking up online. I'm like, what are you talking about? But thank you so much anyway for educating me on what's going on in the crypto space. And
well,
after that, I'll mute myself.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your thought, Reggie. Tony, have any other comment on this topic, or sorry, not Tony, Eric, do you have any thoughts?
No. You know,
Okay.
I think to Reggie's point, and I'm a blockchain guy, Reggie, right? Not so much crypto, and I joined this group to learn more about crypto. But the applications in blockchain are going to be endless, and that's really where I'm investing, right? In SaaS companies and other things that are built on blockchain. So that I 100% believe in. Crypto, I don't quite understand yet, guys, and I've made very, very little investments in it, but I'm here to learn more too.
Oh, great, great. I would love to continue the debate on this question of digitalization, but we are already past 9 o'clock, so I don't want to hold everyone too late beyond our original schedule. So I would like to end the discussion here, even though I actually have one more question. But given the time, let's stop here. Thank you, everyone, for participating in this roundtable. Share your thoughts. And also thanks our speaker, Umar, to share the fascinating project, not only just on the security side of the Web3, but also his journey as an entrepreneur, how he deal with a lot of other business issue and inspire the future or current and future entrepreneur as well. So I really appreciate. And our next meetup, we are hoping to have an in-person meetup again. Every quarter, we host 1 in-person and 2 online event. We're always looking for sponsor because the fee has gone up, the rent has gone up, and we also provide food and drinks to our attendees. So we are looking for sponsor that are willing to cover the cost, and the cost current cost we are about $2,500. That's including the rent, air conditioning of the venue, also the food and the drinks. So if you know any startup or business that can sponsor us, or if you know any good crypto project that want to speak at our next event, please reach out to us, introduce to us, and we have a Telegram channel, which we now I think have over 100 members now, and we will only start less than a year ago, and so please come to our Telegram channel for share your thoughts, and we focus on intellectual discussion about the crypto space. We don't show tokens, so that's our platform for community voice. Okay, so Mark, back to you as a MC. Do you want to close down?
Yeah, thanks, Victor, for the courtesy of letting me close. I think we're pretty much done. I just posted the link for the Telegram group that you mentioned. It's in the chat, so please grab it before we end it up. And feel free to also, you can save the chat if you like. And stay tuned for the recording that will be posted on YouTube. It's going to take a little bit of time, so don't look at it tomorrow for sure. But we'll put a little message on meetup.com. Thanks again for participating, and we'll see you guys next month. And maybe we'll see you guys next week in Consensus and Austin in Texas. So we're looking for some heat there. All right, so looking forward to see you soon, and have a good evening, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Goodbye, everyone. Thank you for attending.
Cheers.